Hi, I'm Marie and welcome back to Clutching Our Pearls. Today, Susie and I have the absolute pleasure of talking to Morgan Sheets, and we're going to talk about a few things: entrepreneurialism, disabilities, self-advocacy, and all of the things that go with making your life what it needs to be for you. Morgan Sheets is a media and marketing consultant that teaches female entrepreneurs established health, wellness, and fitness businesses how to land and leverage media coverage. Through her program, Get Your Message in the Media, she walks business owners through a step-by-step process to land media coverage so they can increase their impact, leverage their exposure, and attract their ideal clients, which also comes with fun stuff like increasing your income, establishing your authority, and being a leader in your industry. Morgan has landed placements for health and wellness entrepreneurs on Oprah.com, Prevention, First for Women, and a litany of other high-quality media placements.
Did you say Oprah.com?
I did say Oprah.com.
I've heard of Oprah.
She's kind of famous.
Yeah.
So Morgan knows a little bit about what she speaks. And we wanted to get today into journey, because journey is to entrepreneurialism, or even to finding out who we are in this world, is not always an easy path. So Morgan, I want to just open this up for you to share your journey on how you became an entrepreneur and the big, hairy why.
Well, thank you for having me and letting me share this journey and speak about it this way. I think this is actually the first time that I'm talking publicly about this angle. I realize as we're talking, so I'm excited. So my very first entrepreneurial ventures was at like 7 years old. I started small. I would go pick wildflower bouquets, and I lived in a farmhouse in Holland at the time, and we were right next to a national forest, and I would pick these beautiful bouquets and sit by the path on the weekends trying to get people to buy them, or my art. And I have a picture that I keep and I look at to honor, that part of me, because 7-year-old me just knew that she wanted to create things and, support herself, make money doing them. And then older version of me, first helped my mom start her business. She had hired someone else, and at 23, he didn't work out. She invited me in, and I helped her build and grow that business until we sold it. And on the journey to help her grow the business, I started to quickly realize that I was really facing a lot of challenges that weren't going away. And so it became important to me. And I realized in that process that if I wanted to support myself in this world, the way the world was structured at the time, especially like corporate America, there was no way I could work in that environment. So I decided, well, I can only go up from here, basically. I started my business in August 2013. I formally formed an LLC, and I started it right after having a severe adrenal fatigue breakdown from a reaction to a hydrocortisone shot to get rid of poison ivy. It was the worst time to start a business, but also the best, because that negative side effect from the shot derailed me in my life so much and literally put me on the floor that it made me think very deeply about what I wanted and what I would do for it and what I would stand for. And that was my why for starting the business then. And then as I continued my journey towards both figuring out what I was going through health-wise, because I didn't really know. I had started showing symptoms at 15 and did not just have any diagnosis or real understanding of what was happening to me until I was about 35, I believe.
Until 35?
35. So 20 years I lived, and frankly, I'm getting off track of starting the business, but until I was formally diagnosed, and this is part of why I value actually using labels in my work, to raise awareness, is that I just thought I was wrong. I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I was failing. I thought I was broken, and I was trying so hard. I bought a house at 19. While going to college full time and working part time. I tried very hard, high achiever. And I devoured health and wellness books to try to fix myself. And I really internalized me being the problem because it took so long. 15 to 35, 20 years.
What kind of things were you hearing from doctors as you were trying to figure this out?
At 15, it was testing for mono. I found out I had hypoglycemia. Later, through my own research, I realized it's even reactive hypoglycemia. So the advice I received about hypoglycemia, it still drives me crazy, which is why I work with health and wellness professionals, was to eat cottage cheese. That was
Naturally.
like, that was how I was supposed to fix my hypoglycemia, was to eat cottage cheese and eat meals 3 times a day. And they tested me for mono. I didn't have it. And I was sent to therapy where I was told that I was chemically imbalanced. I heard that a lot, that you have a chemical imbalance, but no one really told me how I could fix it or what I could do about it or anything like that. And so Prozac was offered at that time, which I didn't personally want. My parents are more natural focused, so they were against it. Frankly, I think that belief against it probably did me a disservice. And openly and honestly, I'm now considering at this point in my life, I'm actually trying to pursue that type of medication to help me because I still struggle. So I'm not anti-medication. It's just that belief system at that time. And I also am changing it because I don't think it's serving me anymore. So there was that period. And then it really became a mental thing. I really internalized that I was imbalanced and that, just the things people say, I was really made to be the problem. Like if I could just behave better and do all these things and no one listened. So then we got to my early 20s and it became a lot of sinus issues. So I had deviated septum surgery. I would try to talk to my gynecologist and everybody just wanted to put me on antidepressants. And
how did we go from nose to vajayjay? How did we make that transition?
It is quite a jump. So the story in my head that's happening is the missing link, is that each doctor that I went to for, some kind of ailment, whether a regular checkup, I tried to tell my overall symptoms. So
just trying to draw a complete picture to see if they have the missing piece.
I appreciate that. And I think that's part of the problem, is that we have to go to all these different places that focus on all these isolated parts.
Yeah.
Right. And no one, it feels like at times, is willing to hear the big picture of what's happening with us. And that's what I felt like was happening with me with these medical providers. So the next step, I went with I saw functional medicine doctors. That's how I got I did a saliva test, the diagnosis for adrenal fatigue. They were very helpful. But the adrenal fatigue turned out to be a symptom of another problem, which was PMDD is what I experienced, and pretty severe complex PTSD. I can. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is, in layman's terms, means that in theory, women that experience this disorder like I do, we have bodies whose have a genetic or cellular reaction, negative to severe negative reaction to our own natural hormone fluctuations. This typically presents in the luteal cycle, though there is a range of how women experience this disorder. So that's not always true for every woman. And it's believed to be to progesterone. So it comes with some really fun things like severe suicidality, fatigue that you can't get out of bed, long list of other aches,
your PMS
pains,
is trying to kill you.
Yes.
Mine tries to kill others. So that's just kidding.
Well, I know that feeling too. Yeah. And it actually, I do want to make an important distinction because PMDD is not PMS. The main difference is that PMDD, our bodies are actually consistently negatively reacting to the hormone, whereas PMS is, a little bit different. I don't know because I look more at what I have.
Right.
But it is a common misconception that I wanted to clarify.
No, thank you, because I am 100% ignorant about your condition and very interested to learn. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And it's so hard when it is something that is so under the radar and so infrequently talked about, because I have been fighting endometriosis and adenomyosis since I started my menstrual cycle. All of the major symptoms: passing out, vomiting for days, unable to walk. And of course, they would tell me to shake it off. And I got to tell you, when Viagra came out, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You can make a dick stand up for 8 hours, but nobody's paying attention to this disorder that is disabling women at like 1 in 10. And my symptoms would last 17 days. So 17 days out of the month.
Mm-hmm.
So more than half.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
And it's terrifying.
It's debilitating. I mean, at my worst, I had 7 functional days out of the month. And I mean, I don't know about you, but it was literally debilitating for me. And it's difficult. I know you're a high performer. It's so challenging to face living in a debilitating body when you have this high performing mind. Like one of you is like, let's go do things. And it's like, no.
And during that, you started a business.
Yeah.
And how, can I ask how much? So when I started my business, a lot of it was because I wrote this in the intro 100 years ago that, I was a square peg in America's, round hole, but like, I'm fucking different and it's hard to employ me, because of the accommodations I need, because of my mental health, which is not great. I have PTSD, I've got some stuff going on, but when I'm in a supportive environment, well, I used to have to create those for myself. So was that a part of what you did?
Yeah, it was
part of why you did?
Yeah, it was the main angle. Exactly what you said. I mean, I'm also really weird and different, and I knew I was unemployable. I had one corporate job in college working for Verizon Wireless, and people would throw phones at my head, and I was like, kick out the front door, crazy things, and won't go into that too much. But I was like, this isn't for me. I need to find another way. And also at that job, 2 things that maybe at that young age, because I was like 2019 at that job, I would have to sit. I didn't know, like I said, I didn't really know I was sick. I knew I had symptoms, but I didn't know it was a chronic illness until, 20 years later. So I would have to sit down sometimes because at the time customer service had to stand. And I wouldn't be able to stand my full shift. Like my body would just want to give out, and I'd go get a chair. And I was sat down in a chair one day, and he physically pulled me down the hall, like away from my station into the hall. I was like, you can't sit down. And it's like, and this is also a challenge of someone like both of you, where it's invisible, right? Like we look perfectly normal to everyone else on the outside, and yet we're battling all of this stuff on the inside. And not only are we battling it, but we constantly have to prove it to other people and like defend ourselves and against like being called lazy or like, all of these things, because we're just trying to do the things we need to accommodate, take care of ourselves. And I think that experience, and then like during that time frame, my grandmother also died, and I held her hand while she passed, and I laid by her deathbed, and that same manager threatened to fire me. And he said, if you don't come to work, I said, okay, bye. And those things really motivated me to, like, just like you said, be the one to be the best boss I could be for myself and try to create the environment and structure and space to allow me to thrive as a whole person. So mental work I love. I tried massage therapy. That's what I started my business, and I loved it, and I was good at it, and I taught workshops. But because I'm super analytical and I love data and metrics and ideation, like the mental part of me was really unhappy. And so my business has really been a journey to give myself space to both create income to support myself, but also give my space to just allow personal growth and self-exploration and meeting my own needs. Like you said, there's just a lot of stuff that goes along with these issues. And at the most basic, it's just giving myself the ability to take care of them.
Yeah. And, I think especially as we fight the invisible, which, I think we are 3 women that have pretty unique disorders. We tend to be the guinea pigs. I can remember being put on Depo-Provera, which is what they use to castrate sex offenders.
I didn't know that.
At like 23. And I put on 40 pounds in a week and was sleeping 15 hours a day and lost my sex drive. I was like, yeah, this is a great.
I don't know if this is too personal, but did you also have a lot of bleeding and like mental insanity with it?
So I did have a lot of the bleeding, to the point where There were days that I knew that I could not leave the house, and I would arrange my schedule to the days when I could not exit because I was wearing adult diapers.
Yes.
Just to get through a couple of hours. The mental thing didn't show up as mood swings as much as it did defeat, because I'd been fighting this, and nobody was doing any research. Nobody was making any headway. They just came out with the first drug for endometriosis in the past year. And you can only take it for 6 months in your entire life. In your entire life.
Oh, God, why?
Well, when you've got a condition that lives with you for your entire life, that's not very.
It's really just not acceptable. Like,
and it was also $2,000 a month. So you're fighting the invisible. You're being told everything from this is possibly all in your head, or walk it out, or let's try this. And Depo takes 2.5 years to get out of your system. It's great birth control. You're fat, you're exhausted, and you hate sex. Thank you. This is not helpful. This is not making me a happier human.
Most of the weight that I gained, and I am a fat person, was started when I took Depo, and I took Depo for about 2 years, and it jacked me up. Really jacked me up.
I quite literally just had I tried to go to a new OBGYN because I'd moved out of the city of Chicago. I moved into the suburbs, and first person I went to sat down. She goes, "Have you heard about Depo?" Now, mind you, I have had a hysterectomy. When they took my uterus, it was the size of a 6-year-old's because it had atrophied itself so drastically. And I gave that woman such a lecture, bless her heart. Like, she was not expecting my ass that day. But I was also sitting in her office with my stomach so distended from endometriosis that I looked like I was 6.5 months pregnant. But they took my uterus, so they fixed everything, right? We didn't see anything. I don't think you've got it where you said you have it. Cool, great. And it does cause those of us that are high functioning to figure out ways around it, right? Because
it does.
We've got stuff to do.
Yeah, we don't want to let whatever we're going through stop us from living our lives, no matter what it is we want to do, you know?
But I think there's some things that need to be in place for folks to understand, like how to start pulling themselves forward, or even just to have the cognition that they aren't the only ones. Mm-hmm. Because we often get told, your symptoms just don't go together. I'm sorry, this isn't diagnosable. So yeah. Did you ever find community that helped you identify
I did once I could diagnose myself, right? Like, I think that's the first step. And you asked why, like, originally start my business, but why I pivoted and went into teaching other women in health and wellness businesses how to land media coverage is because, you know, there was no anything on the internet up until maybe 2015, 18-ish about PMDD. I think the availability of information from people like you, like us, you know, and everyone else of lived experience where we're putting content out into the world, either through a business or just advocacy or sharing our experience and keywords, and using both recognizable terms that people who haven't been diagnosed can begin to connect with, to understand that they're experiencing the same thing. I think that's really important. And then, you know, after the diagnosis, using the proper terminology, I think is equally important so that, you know, those of us that recognize we have the same things can find each other. And so after I received the PMDD diagnosis, which was 2017, and originally I found it out through a Google search. Why does my period make me want to kill myself? Why does my period make me suicidal? Which is very common dysphoric disorder. And so that's how I found PMDD. And then now I'm part of a community. There's an association called the International Association of Premenstrual Disorders, IAPMD. And they have a Facebook group of women with PMDD. They have a Facebook group of women that have had gone through chemical menopause or had a hysterectomy to try to solve, you know, the condition. And I would say this is my first time trying to join a community where I felt like it was a success for me personally. I want to do something about my condition. And in this community, I feel like I am surrounded by a lot of other women that also really want to do things despite having this condition. And there's a safe space to express what you're going through. And because it's so hard, there is so much genuine, just like Facebook comment love, but still love and compassion and also education. So I've really leaned on them. I think it's a well-run group, good boundaries, good rules. And I think that's important for a community where, we're dealing with these challenges that have just really hard aspects to them. Because if you don't have that safe space, for me, I personally can't put myself in it. Like, I'm not in a community to gripe all day. I am there to share, like, this was so hard and I am sad or I'm angry, but not to vent and complain. And that's the space that I'm in. It is more geared to authentically sharing what emotion you're experiencing. And I really like that.
It's so powerful to be believed.
That's the truth. And that's the crux, I think, of the problems that we're facing as women in the healthcare system. Like I say so often, like, I don't know why in 2022 that we have to prove that we are biologically different than a man. And it's not just that we have different parts. We're not an engine that has like a V6 versus V8 or a pickup truck versus a car. Like, our biological difference transcend into our whole body. So, like with you with your endometriosis, like, yeah, you can take the uterus out, but it can go elsewhere in your body. Like, it doesn't stop the actual
right when
problem.
It's in your legs, and they don't believe that the only reason I was able to prove to them that it was in my legs and following my nerve paths is I put a TENS unit on, and it traveled down the exact same nerve route that I was having pain on a monthly basis. And I had to go in and be like, look, motherfucker,
I scienced myself.
Yeah, I get a little, I do have some self-advocacy when it comes to the medical world, because my mother was disabled when she was pregnant with me. She had a chemical exposure at General Motors, and a chemical exposure comes with all kinds of ailments that nobody can put a finger on. So both she and I were tremendously ill, and I started caring for her when I was 3 and having to be that caretaker and watch her struggle to be believed when her face was so swollen over with migraines that she was in bed for days and vomiting. And they were like, oh, you just want to stay home with your daughter. Susie, I want to find out a little bit more about your story, because you have a very unique disability that came on later in life and is...
You mean June 20th, 2020 it came on?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I was on June 9th, 2020. I was in a friend's backyard all day in the shade, hanging out. And because it was 2020, we couldn't be inside with people. So everything was great. The next day, I take my dog to the dog park, and it feels like every bit of exposed skin. It was June in California, so I was wearing shorts and a tank top. And it felt like I was being like paper cutted everywhere, all over my skin that was exposed. It felt like it felt like what I imagine an acid burn would feel like. There was like a gross toxicity and pain to it, and I freaked out because I had no idea what was happening in my body. I was terrified, and I left the dog park. I went home, and I felt like I had what I imagined a radiation burn would feel like, and I felt just nauseous the rest of the day. I went out again the next day. Same thing happened. The third day, I stuck a finger outside of my front door into a sunbeam, and my finger had a reaction. So I haven't been able to go outside during the day without searing agony in 2 years. And it sucks. And it's undiagnosed. Last I heard, the dermatologist told me to stop being fat, and that might help.
Oh my God.
So, that's fucking helpful. And it's undiagnosed. It's weird. I have to wear full body coverage when I go. I mean, on the way here, I had to go get a haircut because yikes, right? And so we went out and got a haircut. And what happened was I have this full face mask that only has a slit for the eyes. And between my nose and my eyelids swell up every time I leave the house, which having searing swelling pain here is better than everywhere. So yay, progress. But what happened is that all the hair clippings fell in my mask. And so I shook it out. And so I'm driving with a full face mask with little hair snippets. And I'm like, I'm going to fucking lose my mind. Because it was, anyway.
Because you were wearing a hair shirt on your face while trying to protect everything else.
Because I was doing weird face bondage like I always do. I get mad because I'm like, oh, this is a stupid fucking disability. It's dumb. I didn't ask for it. I didn't earn it. I didn't deserve it. But here we are. I go outside and I, burst into flames practically. And it could be perimenopausal. It could be because I'm smack dab in perimenopause. It could be that. It could be that obesity affects hormones. It could be that. It could be all of these things. And I have to figure out which specialist can get me down the next step to tell me to stop being fat. So,
and I think that I want to acknowledge that with any kind of disorder that robs you of a normal life, there is grief, there is loss, there is loneliness, there's very much the emotion of feeling bad for the people that love you because they now have to watch you go through agonizing pain and they can't do anything about it.
Or I was help raising 3 kids at the time, and they got to have less fun because Aunt Susie would go out and suffer. And so it was like, wow, I'm making everybody sad. This is so empowering,
Yeah.
And, I try to find good spins for it, but it's literally spin. And I don't believe myself. And that's why when we were talking earlier about victim versus survivor, so many times people are like, oh, you're a survivor. I'm like, oh, I mean, I have to be. What else am I going to do? I got shit to do in this life.
Yeah, we can stop telling people that they're strong. That doesn't do anything for the person you're saying it to.
Or an inspiration, honestly, because that's the other thing that I think is so hard. It's like, like with everything you're describing, I mean, it's so hard to live through your experience. And then, I know it's hard for mine when someone's like, you're an inspiration, it's like, thanks. Like,
can I give you some advice on that?
Sure.
Yes.
So my response is typically, what have I inspired you to do? And how can you help me with my mission?
I like it. What have I inspired you to do?
I'm not into platitudes. I have walked through hell and back so many times. I'm not interested in being strong.
We become strong by the walk that we're doing, What I'm curious with both of you, because it's very powerful for me to share space with you right now and hear your experiences, outside of my disorders, and to hear others and other experiences. I'm wondering what you would like from people, because I know for me, I want connection and acknowledgement. Like you mentioned with spin, I don't want to spend like toxic positivity, good vibes only. No, thank you. It's empathy and compassion, and to have the pain that just met with being seen. But that's what I would do. I wonder what you both would like to hear, and what would make you feel connected and seen, and like other humans in your life were with you in the experience.
It's such an interesting question, because like I remember being in a relationship with somebody who I absolutely adored, and he would leave the room when I was in pain because he couldn't handle it. And so I think being seen and people not serving up pity, but support is huge.
Yeah.
And there may not always be a way to support you through it, but just knowing I love you and I'm here for it is huge. And giving you space to not be strong. If you need to fucking scream and cry because you are on the floor again, feeling like you are giving childbirth out of nowhere, you need to be able to do that. And to have somebody just not try to fix it, but say, I love you and I'm here. And it fucking sucks. Yeah. But you don't have to be the one that walks through it by yourself. No. Susie, what about you? Besides somebody to carry your umbrella all the time.
Oh, shit, right. Somebody had to put Ethan is my partner. We had to put Ethan's thumb in my phone because like my phone was ringing and I couldn't use the thumb thing because I was wearing my sun gloves. So it's like, well, show me your face ID. I'm like, I'm wearing a mask. I don't have body parts. It's like really frustrating, the tiny constant inconveniences of it. What I need people to believe me, and it would be great if people could remember that it's a thing for me, because it's really hard for me to have to constantly be like, hey, we're going to go do this thing. I'm like, oh, cool. Is it outside? And it's like, it's hard because I don't want to be precious. I don't want to be like, here are the things that you have to understand every time you talk to me. And it sucks. I hate being like that, but sometimes I need it. It's because every time, and I have a massive network. And so anytime people want to go out or like meet up at a park or something, I'm like, I just feel like a constant bummer. So I'd like for people to remember sometimes, and be creative in other things that we can do, because I'm moving away from California in 2 weeks. And so there's a lot of people that want to say goodbye to me. And I'm like, I need you to help me make this happen, because I can't do all of it and do a move,
Yeah.
So
I think what comes to mind, these aren't preferences. I think people are so good about, if they want to give you a gift, they think about these qualities or different things, they think about you. Yeah. But for some reason, it doesn't go that way with these kind of illnesses. And it would be nice if people just remembered, it's just such a major obstacle to you living. I think anybody that cares, to me, the least amount of consideration you can show is, if I was your friend and I hey, let's do something to remember that, like you said, think of a venue or a situation that you can comfortably go and relax and let loose. Because obviously in simple things like being out and trying to answer your phone, even that is so frustratingly painful. So it'd be nice.
I'd like for boomer men to stop acting like they're going to ninja fight me because of what I'm wearing.
I didn't even think about that.
And one drunk asshole got really Islamophobic because they decided I was wearing a hijab. And I'm like, okay, so wow.
You've got problems that are super big. I have nothing to do with them. So I think
I'm not saying I shouldn't be treated like that. Nobody should be treated like that. I'm not saying my whiteness shouldn't get me Islamophobia. I'm like, oh, that shouldn't fucking exist, And in some ways, I'm happy to see it because it makes me understand things better and see how other people are treated, things that would normally be invisible to me because of my privilege.
And so, I think, as we're talking about making things accessible for the ones that we love, I think part of that too is we need to expect that our employers, whether it is ourselves or it is another organization, are able to make space for us. That when I found out that I had endometriosis, I was selling used recycling equipment. Let me tell you how well that conversation went with my boss. I literally had to print stuff out at home and be like, I'm sorry you don't believe me. This is what it is. You don't offer health insurance. Get me health insurance or get me another job because I've done too much for you already. It's the little things like providing space for mental health days, for emotional days, for just being there to say, is this working for you? Have I made enough of a space for you so that you can thrive? Because I don't want you here just surviving. I don't want me here just surviving. We've got an opportunity to create a world that sees us and sees others and finds way to create power. Morgan, one of the things that I thought was so beautiful about how you told your story is that you were kind of left with no choice but to create a life that worked for you. And you leaned towards your natural talents and figured out a way. For others that are in this experience, and let's face it, we are in the Great Resignation. People know that they don't have to deal with the same bullshit they've always dealt with. What is your advice for finding a way to connect to the parts of you that can help get you through this and beginning a path of self-advocacy?
One, you have to be willing to be brutally honest with yourself and listen, I think, to all the parts of yourself. I know that was the case for me. And, I also really had to embrace that I did have a choice. Back in 2013, I was laying on my basement floor contemplating suicide, and I recognized I had a choice, and I thought a lot about the choice, and I chose to live, and I continue over and over and over to make that choice. It's a non-negotiable choice I've made with myself. And I think, for me, one thing I said, I tell myself I can bear any pain, and there's so much brutal self-honesty, I think, is the first step. I'm trying to think of instances, but honestly, my neurological, this light, I'm starting, got to ground myself in for a minute.
Can I compliment you very quickly? While you take a minute, can I compliment you?
Sure.
Okay, because I am very grateful that you are, whatever is enough in yourself to talk about the suicidal ideation. It is, I believe, far more common than many people care to admit out loud. So thank you for that. It's something that I have dealt with a lot. And I swear the only reason that I haven't is because I've got 22 nieces and nephews, and I don't want to curse them with the grief of that, you know? And I am, you know, I hope my sister-in-laws aren't hearing this, but I am the favorite aunt. It's important, you know, it's like we understand the ripples of it.
And
So
the next thing I think is curiosity. Thank you for that compliment. And I'm going to take it and jump off of it because, you know, after that state of choice, sorry, I'm really struggling with my light here and my nerves. The ideation and sharing and the pain. One, I want to share a perspective of the ideation that I learned that was helpful for other people that struggle, because like any of us facing things, I think we tend to make it personal, and it's not personal. How I've learned to frame suicidal ideation is that it's a defense mechanism. It's actually, you know, my survival brain trying to kill me to keep me safe. Super dumb, but our reptile brain is like that. And that's something I have held on to and reminded myself over and over and over as I continue to make the choice, and it's helpful. So how we find these paths, going back to the curiosity, I do think you have to really hone in on the problem within yourself that you're really facing, because until you look at the right problem, you can't fix it. You know, just going back to what you're saying with the phone, like I can just imagine it's so annoying and frustrating and, you know, like not even at peak. So like, you know, identifying the specific problem, like, do I need gloves? Do I need a bigger ring? Like, how can I like answer my phone? Like, can I get software change that I could just have my eyes? Like, you know, I think identifying, being hyper specific about the problem that I'm trying to solve and the outcome that I want to create, then lets me be very honest with myself. And then I go, I'm like, okay, how can I meet this need for myself with the available resources? You know, I think I am very scrappy and resourceful. And that's one of the things that has served me well, is insatiable curiosity. And, you know, I like to say I will be committed to my what or my why and be totally flexible in the how.
I love that. That was brilliant.
And I don't need to know. I've had to get to the space of I don't need to know things. I can just take, you know, we take things day by day, moment by moment. I mean, I used to smoke cigarettes. I smoked for like over 15 years, and it was a wonderful Band-Aid for my issues. And then I got rid of it, and it was so hard. And I would just tell myself, okay, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, walk around the block, drink. You know, and then I was like, what am I really? Oh, well, I'm actually noticing that taking this 10 to 15 minutes to just breathe is part of what's super helpful. So I would say if I can allow myself to take 10 to 15 minutes to smoke a cigarette, then I can give myself that same 10 to 15 minutes to just sit and breathe. So I think like being very strategic and curious and specific with yourself, at least for me, is a big part of what has empowered me to take each step of that I did to get to where I am, because it's been a very, you know, path, like I'm sure yours have been as well. And I'm going to stop railing because I lost my train of thought.
I think too, you know, you've got to look at the ROI. You've got to look at, if I've made this change, did it make my life better? Have I actually achieved an additional level of comfort? Mm-hmm. Or is this just something that I'm putting over top of it because it's what I can get my hands on? Yeah, I don't really need any more essential oils. I'm cool. We're all right with that. I smell like a bleach truck dumped on me. We're not good. No. What are the things that actually make impact? And it may not be the thing that heals you, but it may be the thing that allows you to not go into a panic attack, because that level of pain comes with PTSD. It does.
I just figured out that I'm having panic attacks this year reading a book. I just thought I was mildly uncomfortable because I minimize everything talking about that. Like, I just realized that what I thought was a little bit of anxiety, or like, oh, I have some pain, is panic attacks.
But it's so important, I think, what you just said, because it's like when you have such deep levels of pain, or a body that for me, not you. I don't know your body, but like I can't rely on my body all the time to do what my brain desires it to do. My body has its own plan, or definitely doesn't have a plan. So it's like it's hard to it's easy to like try to get through to get your shit done and like get through it. And then when you're like getting through it, it's hard to be present and grounded with the actual symptoms. And so for me, as somebody who has PTSD, I very much dissociate mind from body. You know, and so it's really easy to think, wow, this kind of sucks, or this is uncomfortable, or this is weird, when it's like the symptoms are so much deeper, but I'm not connected to my actual meat suit, you know.
Yes.
So,
I very much know that experience. And
yeah,
you know, you used to live here and I couldn't feel anything in my body. When I went to massage school, it was like I couldn't feel anybody touching me. I had so shut down and disassociated for so long. And I still work, I'm still working as, with PTSD, especially complex. Like it's a long-term journey to learn. I mean, I'm not regulating my nervous system while I'm voraciously trying to figure out how to do it right now, because, kind of like you with the sunshine, physical movement dysregulates me. I get dysregulated going to a restaurant. Like people are like, what are you triggered by? I'm like, living. like
it was a
I
sound.
don't know. I'm like, we're not at the point in life where I can I'm like, I know how to reframe my stories. I've made peace with all that. Like, I'm just like living I don't know why I'm having a panic attack right now. Like, I just am. And I would like to not be. And I would like to, be able to do a HIIT workout or something without my body going into dysregulation. While we're on this topic, I just finished reading Widen the Window, which was a superb book about learning how to regulate your physiology and understanding like the survival brain and why all this positive mindset doesn't work for people with PTSD, because it's not our thinking brain, it's our survival brain.
Right.
It was an extremely helpful book and brilliant.
My amygdala doesn't care what you tell me.
It's not capable.
She's busy.
Yes.
And I think
the prefrontal cortex goes offline, being a rational, logical person just isn't possible. Executive functioning is offline.
Not a thing.
So I kind of want to bring it back to that point, Susie, of we can do a good job getting lost in the busy, but the busy really isn't going to serve us if we are physically breaking down in the process. For those of you that are not connected to Morgan Sheets yet, I want to make sure that you can find her. She's on Facebook as Morgan Sheets. Instagram is at livebedogood. And you can find her website at morgansheets.thinkific.com. Morgan has done an incredible job of not only embracing what challenges she's found herself with, but being an advocate for creating a lifestyle that is not typical for most people, but was brave enough to take those steps and possibly fail and possibly succeed.
So much
but
failure.
Not be stuck in the busy more than she was available to herself.
Hey, Mary, I have an idea. Let's never stop this episode. Can we just like stay in this moment? Because it feels so good to like be talking on this level. Morgan, I'm accidentally a little in love with you.
It's been a real, honestly, treat to share space with you both. I mean, I feel like we've connected, and I think what we are all experiencing together right now is what we were trying to share, that we're looking for, is just to share space, to have our experience just witnessed, by people who care. And I want to leave people with one question that I've asked. Marie, you were going back to like not the busyness. And one thing that I've really focused on is what's going to improve my quality of life. Just like in business, there's a big difference between revenue and profit. There's a big difference between doing the things we think we need and the things that are going to actually improve our quality of life. So if you just go through your day every day and be like, what can I do in this moment to improve my quality of life, or this day, or this half hour? That's what I did every day. And I just kept doing the things that myself told me to do to improve my quality of life, and then took each next step to try to get there, and I'm still going to keep taking them because I'm right here on this journey with you all, still just trying to build a good quality of life.
Well, and on that
So
note,
good to find sisters on the path, you know?
yes, we need sisters. We need folks that are going to be there to help us get through life, because life is going to happen all over you, no matter what your background or how successful you've been or how much you've been praying for yourself and everybody around you. At some point, you're going to need community. Don't be silent. You should not suffer on your own. There are people out there that can hold space for you, that can hold love for you and not have the answers. Find those people and don't stop searching until you do. If you're listening to this podcast, you have found those people. We are not only space holders, but we are advocates and we are fighters. And we're also highly skilled at being vulnerable. That is one of the hardest things you're going to ever learn, is that the broken parts of you see the broken parts in others and do an incredible job of helping to lift each other up. But you've got to be able to show up with them. Thank you so much, Morgan, for joining us today, Susie, for being my badass co-host every day, and to all of you who have been listening. Please, please, please take with you one thing. Love yourself enough. Even if you're not there today, try one thing. Try one thing that increases the quality of your life, because your life matters. And the minute you find someone else that can connect on that level, you're going to start to move things forward. Thank you all so much for joining us, for your honesty, and we want to hear from you. Make sure that you give us feedback on the podcast, leave us a review. We like the good ones, but we'll take the other ones too. And we will continue to provide resources for you. Live the life that you deserve, not the life that you were told you deserve. Thank you for listening to Clutching Our Pearls.
Clutching Our Pearls is a no-holds-barred conversation about women, work, and the world. We strive to approach economic, social, professional, and cultural topics from an open-hearted, good-faith, intersectional feminism point of view. What started as a single mom and business owner's reaction to the coronavirus pandemic continues as a mission to change how work works so that the people have choices. Learn more at fwdrevolution.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a phenomenal review on the platform you use. Talk to you next time.